Hi, everybody. Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee, where we talk about life, leadership, and legacy and want to help you unleash your capacity and level of leadership. Oh my gosh, I am so excited today because today is the season finale of Leading with Lee. And we're going to do some reflecting today, but I'm so grateful that you have been with me throughout this season and throughout this year. But before I talk about anything else, please go and subscribe to Leading on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. You can still go back and watch all the episodes from the season. I think this was probably my best season yet, and I think you will be truly impacted by the content that I had to share throughout the season. And before I even get even further and talking more about it, if you would, I just want to give you some information that I always say on here because I think it's a core message of this Leading with Lee podcast. I always talk about life, leadership, and legacy, and I want to help you unleash that, as I said in my intro, as always. But I like to give my definition of leadership one last time in 2023. So I'm going to give you my definition, and I believe that leadership is seeing something that has not happened yet and taking people, personal processes, and organizations in that direction. Leadership is seeing something that has not happened yet and taking people, organizations, and personal processes in that direction. And, it's been such a great opportunity for me in the 4 years that I've been doing leading to now share about these subjects as it relates to leadership, life, and legacy. I've actually shared quite a range of topics around this thing. And if you've watched Leading or have engaged with this content any the time, you know that I talk about leadership from more of a personal level, that I think leadership starts with the individual. I think that leadership starts with you as a person, and that shows up in how you lead people, how you lead organizations, how you lead within any space that you're in, because I think that all people have a capacity and level of leadership. And I think that's important to note as I'm ending season 4 of Leading with Lee. It is super important for me to remind you that that is a big thing for us. And as we look back throughout the season, there are so many things I can really focus in on throughout 2023 that I really talked about this season. We kind of had a theme for 2023, and I wanted to talk about leading from where you are because I think that that is important. I think, as I was just stating, all of us have something to give to the world. All of us have work that we could be doing to transform our communities and society as a whole, but you got to see yourself as a part of the solution. One of the struggles that we have within our culture is so many people are abdicating their opportunity to be a part of the answers to our world because they don't think they have the capacity to do great work. I was having a conversation with a coworker of mine as it relates to this, and we're talking about a Mandela quote, and I'm not going to quote it, but I am going to make reference to it. You can go look it up. And it's something that Nelson Mandela said about fear. He talks about how fear doesn't cause us to draw back. It actually causes, for most people, the scariest thing, and I'm paraphrasing, is that we are afraid that we actually could accomplish the goals that we're setting out to accomplish. We actually could make a difference in the world in such a significant way. And I've been inspired by that quote and inspired by that thought throughout this season and have really tried to help you center the idea that you can lead from where you are. You can make a difference in the world around you. And we talked about mental health a lot this season, personal health a lot this season. I even talked about women in leadership, but I'm not going to keep talking about it. I just want to show you some of my favorite clips from this season. So take a look at this. I remember a few years ago, I was doing a Facebook Live, and I was doing this thing called Leader Tips Live. It was based off a thing that I did at the first Leading with Lee back in 2019. And I had done it a few times because when I would do Leading with Lee, I was also ask other people to come and speak or be a part of the experience. And I remember someone asked me on this particular Facebook Live, who did I listen to? Who were like my favorite leadership gurus or people that I basically modeled my stuff after. And I had given an honest answer, and I had given an authentic answer. I talked about Miles Monroe and people like John Maxwell, and I think I might have mentioned someone else. And then I think what was interesting about that response was in the middle of me saying it, I started to hone in on this. I started to really drive down on this, that actually I need to make very clear that though they might be examples, I'm not them and they are not me. Say this as I'm ending. How many people have missed out on stuff in life because they wouldn't try? How many people do you know probably could have done so much more, but because they were unwilling to try, they went through this life and had regret? One of my favorite speakers of life, the late great Miles Monroe, says this. He says the wealthiest place in the world is a graveyard. And I've shared this before here on Leading, but it's still a very profound thing. The wealthiest place is a graveyard because it's full of people who did not actually step out and do what they needed to do. My encouragement to you as I'm turning 30 is I hope that over this next year of your life, you will try something. You will try to do something different. You'll try to go after a goal. You'll try to make your life better than it is now. It's up to you. You got to do it. And I hope that you will do it with me. Restriction often breeds innovation. Restriction has a way of pushing you to do things that you never thought you could do. I've seen this in the women in my life oftentimes. My mother, my grandmother, sometimes had limited resources. My grandmother often had limited resources. But she found a way to support and empower her children and her grandchildren to get the things that they need. My mother has made meals for our family with limited resources and limited budgets and limited things, and figured out how to get us what we need. Because women have this capacity. They just have this ability. You all have this innate ability to defy the odds when there are restrictions placed on you. But those markers have the ability to provide research and information for the next thing. Because 18-year-old Lee is not the same as 30-year-old Lee. 19-year-old Lee was a different person than I am now at 30. And I think it's been profound to recognize that even in my own life, I can reflect on my 18-year-old self, 18-year-old self, and recognize how much I have grown, how much I have changed as a person, how many things have happened in my life because that was a marker. One of the things that happens a lot in our society and culture is if you don't hold yourself accountable, society will. And they might be more harsh than you. Society and culture might be more harsh on you than you would be on yourself. Now, for some people, it may be the reverse. They might be more gracious than you are to yourself. But the point is actually recognizing that you need to have some discipline. You got to be able to say no to some stuff. You got to be able to be like, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice not going on this trip or not doing this particular thing, because I'm trying to invest in some way. There's a saying that we hear all the time: we are the sum total of our decisions. I agree with that statement, but let's also add to that, we are the sum total of people's decisions that they made about us. Because sometimes you don't actually make the decision about yourself. It's something that somebody else put on you. What have people put on you? What ideas or concepts or cultural things or rationales have people put on you that you are dealing with right now because of them? What lies have you believed? What things are true have you believed? What are all these things that have shaped who you are and brought you to this point? Because you have to debate or actually go back in your mind and think about, how did I get here? Dreamers have to recognize this, that everybody won't see your dream, but you have to have the courage to do something by yourself. You got to be able to do it by yourself. You got to be able to move forward when people don't see it yet. You got to be able to step up to the plate and do what you need to do when people have not come on board yet. Because you have to have courage and move forward. Wow, wasn't that amazing? Wasn't that encouraging? Didn't you really get inspired by some stuff that I had to say throughout this year? And I hope that will inspire you to go and think and consider and really believe that you can leave from where you are, that you have something to give in any spaces that you're in, that we need your voice. We actually need you to be effective in the ways that you can be. And I really thought it was important and imperative for me to share a lot this season. You probably have seen me more than you've seen me in past seasons share. And I really did do a lot of work with unpacking a lot of subjects in 2023. And I hope that you were impacted by the things that I've shared and the things that I have expressed to you here on Leading. But I didn't think that I was an expert on every subject. And I got smart and brought some folks on that really have impacted me personally. And I truly believe that they have impacted you. And so I just want to look back for a second at folks who were so impactful throughout this season of Leading in their sharing and giving insight and wisdom. Check this out from the guests that came on this season of Leading with Lee.
I think that we have to orient ourselves and remind ourselves that there's still parts of our lives that we truly can enjoy.
Yeah.
And to consciously take time to experience gratitude and to, find those micro joys in our day, because, if we let ourselves, we will fly through a season that was really a good season of our lives, but we were just so busy trying to get to the next thing.
And I find it very interesting that believers are up in arms about AI when we should have already tapped into HI, which is heavenly intelligence.
Come on now.
Which is the third one of the Godhead, which is the Holy Spirit that will lead you and guide you in all truth. And he becomes your advantage, and he becomes your way to have access to information before people have access to that information. And so the reason that I am not worried about AI is because I've had access to intelligence beyond my knowledge for all my life. And this is why the believer has to have a relationship with the Holy Spirit, because if you do not, you'll be at the mercy of other people thinking for you, and you'll be reactive instead of already having downloads from heaven about what you need to do next. And that's all AI is. It's a ripoff of the Holy Spirit. It's a carbon copy of. And the reason that I, as a human being, am not afraid of AI is because, yes, you can have intelligence, but you can't get to emotion. You can't get to people's heart. Only God knows the heart of
women, as well as when people of color are afforded, additional resources. They almost always invested back into their communities. That's not the same for our counterparts. So one Black engineer, or even one Black female engineer, getting a successful job, having a successful company, or even having successful returns from an investment, that investment goes so much farther than anybody else. So that's why it's important for us, especially in our community, to train up the next generation of these people.
We need to have more real people as candidates. Because in all honesty, we have way too many people that play figures and play roles, and have consultants that build their image and play a thing of, I know your community, but really have no clue how any of this stuff works. No clue of how any bill process works. No idea how any process of funding, any process of issues, I'm not trying to hear from a person that came from a wealthy family telling me about impoverished communities. I'm not. You can't tell me anything about an impoverished community because I've lived it. I've known what it is not to have electricity. I've known what it is not to have water. I've known what it is not to have food. I've known what it is to be on the street. So you cannot tell me that point because I have experience in it, right?
Yes.
You can tell me all the statistics all day if you want, but I have the narrative.
I believe that deep within the recesses of woman, we have an innate ability to harness and tap into our emotions.
Yeah.
In a way that is just innate to who we are. And I think within that, that hosts and incubates creative ability. And so in doing that, you're showing up as your authentic self, and you're able to bring, like I mentioned, the power of story. And that isn't always, that doesn't always encompass, the norms or, cultural ideas of womanhood. That also taps into intellect, that also taps into tech, whatever sphere of influence that you are in. I believe that you're able to just bring that to that space.
Oh my gosh, weren't they amazing? I truly can say that I have been so honored and humbled by the insight and wisdom of all those folks that came on this season of Leading. But I can't leave you at the end of this season without sharing two things that I want to give to you as I'm ending this season. And we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll be right back after this message. Hi, everybody. Lee here, and I want to give some information to you. Do you need someone to host an event or come and speak at your event? You can now book yours truly. Book me for your event by visiting www.leeascott.com. I am so excited to connect with you and do work with you. Much love, and let's get started. And we are back. Thank you for still being here. I know that we've been reflecting most of this season about what has happened throughout 2023 here on Leading with Lee. And I hope that you have been so encouraged and empowered through what I've had to share, and even guests that have come on have had to share here on Leading with Lee. And I really, really took a lot of time to try to give my best to you all here in 2024. There's so many things that has happened in 2024. And I just got 2 points that I want to give to you to end this season of season 4 rather, of Leading with Lee here in 2024. I got 2 things. My first thing is what I learned in 2024, or what I have learned in season 4. And I'm going to get a little personal in there. And then my last point is what to look forward to in season 5 of Leading with Lee. So let's deal with the first thing. And I want to talk about it for a second because there's a lot that has happened in this year of my life. As you all know, I spent most of the year being 20 in the last year of my 20s. I turned 30 this year. It was such a interesting and powerful time for me because it was a dichotomy happening in my life where literally I was coming on here talking to you about life, leadership, and legacy, and having struggles in my work life, having some things happen where transitions were happening that were imposed, not things that I brought up on myself, just situations that I was not prepared for, and things that I had not particularly put into consideration as it relates to my future, especially when it comes down to my job, and especially it comes down to my income. And you may be watching us, listening to this right now, and you've had those struggles in 2023. You were at a particular job and changed jobs, or you were changing positions, or you're dealing with a family situation, or you're dealing with a personal circumstance that was outside of your control. And you were like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get through that. And I understand that. And I get those things because whether it be physical, I got sick earlier this year that was kind of out of nowhere, and was dealing with a lot of transitions with my family and loved ones and folks in my life, and seeing sudden losses in my life and certain things that were kind of peculiar around me. It made me be very reflective. I think you have seen me the most reflective I've ever been on this season of Leading with Lee. I think it's because I am getting older, and now there's so many things that I'm excited about in my future, but I really have been thinking a lot about a lot of things. And I just want to give you 3 things that really stuck out to me from considering and thinking about this year's season finale and how I personally feel about going forward. And so here's the first thing. The first thing that I realize is I have resilience and I am more self-actualized than ever before. I started realizing after being in therapy for a year and being very open and honest with my friendships and actually requiring things in my friendships. One of the things I think we often don't do, even in friendships, is have honest expectations of the people that we're saying we're in relationships with. Sometimes we tolerate things in friendships and relationships that actually are causing us to fail or causing us to have drawbacks or triggering us in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And we have to actually create boundaries to say, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And I'm going to invite these certain things into my space. Maybe you had to do that in your life this year. Maybe you've had some situations in 2023 where you had to refocus and recalibrate some relationships and say, hey, I want things that actually make me better in my life. I want some things that actually make me happy in my life. I want some things that are not going to drain on me. They're going to make me better and stronger. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to really invest in ways that actually makes me feel good about myself and makes me feel like a better person. Hey, I'm going to get rid of some stuff that's not doing well for me. I'm going to reduce my engagement with some people that aren't actually helping me become the person that I want to become. I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that I am living a life that's reflective of my value. And that's something that I think I've learned in 2023, that I must be resilient, that I must keep going. I must do the things that's necessary for my own mental and emotional health. If that means reducing certain conversations with individuals, I've done it in 2023. And it's shown up here on Leading with Lee, because I've shared some things on here that I have typically not shared. I've been more open about my personal life on this season of Leading with Lee. I typically don't get into that, but I think you can't lead anybody if it doesn't get personal for you. One of the things that I'm learning in life too is a lot of times people are connected based on their similarities of their stories. I was having a conversation with someone, and literally I realized that as we were talking, both of us were oldest kids. We were the oldest child in our family. And that similarity caused us to have an understanding, though we were different genders, though we come from different backgrounds, we come from different cultures, we were able to connect because that similarity actually was something that we knew that we both experienced. And many of us, as we're learning and growing, you have to actually assume that those things are happening around you and happening in your life. There's a power to having similarities with someone. There's a power to connectivity, that I can understand your story, even though I may not have lived your experience. I can be sympathetic and empathetic when I talk to you because I understand where you're coming from. There's something powerful about people who have survived being in wars, and folks who are veterans who have served our country and served their countries in particular wars or war zones around the world. They have a particular set of values or a particular set of conversations that the only people that can have that, because they have experienced those things. And that might not be the thing that you experience, but all of us have a connecting thing that happens in our life to where when we have a conversation with certain people, they're able to understand us without even having context. And I've learned that this year, that in my resilience and my self-actualization, I must seek out relationships and connections that causes me to feel seen and heard. And that is okay for you as a leader. You need to understand that you need safe spaces to where you can feel seen and heard, and you actually are able to accomplish your goals because you feel safe. All of us need safe spaces. All of us need the ability to be able to come into proximity with folks, and they stand with you in a way that is not based on what you can do for them, but they understand it is about you getting the thing that you need in those moments. And one thing I've recognized about this year and throughout this season, that there's some self-actualization that has been happening with Lee that has made him more productive as a person. There's some understanding that I've come into that has made me better as a person. I have not been so cavalier with conversations because I recognize there's something about me at this point. There's something that's happening in my soul, in my life, in my mind that is pushing me to be the person that I need to be. And one thing I think that's important is we got to keep doing that throughout our lives. You're going to have to continue to self-actualize. You have to keep being resilient. You have to overcome resistance in your life. You have to be willing to push forward when there are things that are happening in your life that you don't understand or you don't like, or it's actually taking a toll on you. You're going to have the courage to keep moving and keep moving forward and doing what you need to do, because that is the only way your life can change, is you having the courage to keep moving forward. And I talk about that all the time here on Leading, and you know that's my biggest thing. But diamonds are only made under pressure. You don't know if you have what it takes to get through until you are put through the fire and you get through the fire. And that's one of the things that I have learned in my personal growth in season 4 of Lead It with Lee. The next thing is that I still have something to say. Still have so much to say. I'm still being rejuvenated and transformed by the words and the experiences of my life, that I actually have something to still share with people. I know that some things come to an end and seasons come to an end, but one thing that really stuck with me throughout this year of leading, especially when times where I felt like, man, I don't feel motivated to create content. I don't feel motivated to talk about life, leadership, and legacy. Who cares if I want to talk about this subject? Who really actually is going to listen to that? I was being reminded that, Lee, you have something to say, and it matters what you say. People need to hear what it is that's on your mind, whether they hear it now or later, because the reality is you have lived experiences that could actually transform and change someone's life. It could actually motivate them to invest in themselves. It could actually motivate them to see themselves as a part of a solution and not a part of the problem. It could actually cause them to see how they could be an asset to their community. Whether they come from the same community as you or not, they can see themselves as a part of the answer. And I think that's so important for you and I, because a lot of times we silence ourselves based on the realities around us. We silence ourselves based on fear. We silence ourselves based on if we're going to be alienated or not even allowed to be a part of a conversation. We silence ourselves because we are so afraid of rocking the boat. We are so afraid of changing the spaces that we're in, and we cause ourselves to not be fully authentic because we don't want to mess up something that we're used to. But in order for you to grow, sometimes you got to say something. And I've learned over the last 4 years that me saying something is actually liberating. Me saying how I feel, me saying what I believe is actually the key to my own personal success. Me actually speaking up, me actually talking about the things that I care about, whether other people care about it or not, is a thing that is liberating me and liberating my soul. So whether or not you applaud it or not, I feel inspired because I'm actually sharing what I've been thinking about. Whether you wanted to hear it or not, I actually been sharing what I have been considering and thinking about over and over and over again every single day, because it matters a great deal to me. And I hope that you have been inspired, which means like last point of point 3, these are my sub points, is that I really can be impactful through my story and my experience. As I was just talking about, I'm a kid who grew up here in Jackson, Mississippi on the South Side, who had come from a working class family where my grandparents were folks who sharecropped in Mississippi. Well, my grandmother's only had a high school, only graduated from high school, where folks in my family just worked hard. They were determined. They were doing everything they need to do to try to make their lives better. How this same dude that you're listening to right now knows what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, have his car repossessed several times in his life, have situations where literally I would go to my friend's house just to eat because I didn't have the money to pay for food. I was contemplating paying my car note or paying my light bill. These are lived experiences. Like I can share some realities. I know what it's like to have to fight with my university 3 extra years for a degree and literally have the doors closed in my face over and over and over again. I know what that's like. Also, spending 4 years actually took me 7 years to finish my undergraduate degree because I did not have the money to pay for the class that I needed, or it wasn't offered at the time that I needed it. Like, these are not hyperbole. These are literal stories of my own life. I know what it's like to pray and be a person of faith and believe, and those prayers not get answered the way I wanted to get answered. I know what these things are like. I know what it's like to deal with heartbreak in relationships, whether it be friends or romantic. I know what this like. I know what rejection feels like. But all of those lived experiences actually gives me the credibility and the wisdom to share the information that I'm sharing on this podcast. I know it's like the lead team, and let's get more professional side, because we talk about personal story all the time on here on leading, but even professionally, I've led teams of people. I've started organizations. I've been leading and started organizations since I was a teenager. I started clubs in high school. I started and ran clubs in college. There's a club and organization I started in high school that's still going on to this day, called Mustangs for Christ. There's an organization I started at Oral Roberts University called The Forum, which was an opportunity for people to talk about social issues and be given information and not be filtered through the lens of politics, but talking about the actual situation and giving people information and giving them opportunity to discuss that information in a thoughtful and correct way and come up with solutions on how that they could engage in a healthy and productive conversation. This is stuff that I was doing in college. I've led organizations. I've been involved in leadership in organizations, right? Like, so just as much as there's some personal experience, I have done the other side of it and done the work. I've run departments within organizations. I'm an assistant director at the organization that I work for right now, right? Like, they are not mutually exclusive. Your personal development and your leadership and your career are not that mutually exclusive. They actually work together. They affect each other. And you have to understand that in order for you to be successful and productive in your life, you got to be willing to navigate all of it. And I've shared about it here on Leading. I told y'all when I lost my job, I didn't have to do that. Now, I haven't told to you about the next job I got and how it's positioned me to do a lot of great work. But the fact of the matter is I shared that information because I thought it was pertinent. And I thought it would be an encouragement to you to recognize that there's some things you're going to have to discover about yourself. And there's going to be some things that you have to figure out how to navigate and have the courage to keep going forward in spite of the fact people not working with you. Because see, let me tell you something, to be great and to actually be a leader, you got to have some courage and you got to have some determination, because everybody will not see it at the outset. And then there'll be some times where people see it at the outset because they have a common goal and they have a common vision and they understand, you know what, we got to get on the same page on this thing. We got to work together. We cannot be afraid. We cannot allow fear or favor or anything like that to get in our way. We got to be determined to do the same. And that happens. But I'm telling you, you and I cannot be afraid to keep pushing forward and doing what we got to do in order to make our world a better place. And I think that by my own admission, I think those life experiences has prepared me for this moment. That I could be a credible voice to talk to you about life, leadership, and legacy, because in my life, I've had to overcome some stuff. I've been in leadership, and I am developing my legacy every single day. I don't know how long I have on this earth, but in the time that I have, I want people to really, when they think about Lee Scott, I want them to think about, man, this man talked about leadership. He believed that people could do things significant. He believed in people. He really invested his time and talent in people. He really cared about living a productive life. He was great. He was a great friend. He was a great father. He was a great husband, right? I want it to be said of me that I'm somebody that lived that out. And you have to think about those things, about your impact. Whether you believe it or not, all of us are impactful in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And we cannot sell ourselves short in that matter. And my last point, because I only had 2 points, I had 2, is what to look for in season 5 of Leading with Lee. You know, I've been reflecting on this and thinking about this a little bit more, because there's some things that are happening in my personal life. There's some things that are changing in my personal life, with work, with my relationship, with my friendships. All these things are changing in my personal life. I just want to give you a heads up that, you know, I know this is a bi-weekly podcast and vlog, and I'm still considering a lot, but I would encourage you to stay tuned, because there might be more episodes of Leading. There might be less episodes of Leading. But in the midst of all, I promise you, I'll be back, and I'll come back with so much more stuff to say and share with you about life, leadership, and legacy. Because this is a life mission for me. I think every person can make a difference in the world that they live in. And no matter how it looks for you, the setting might be different. Who knows? Who knows what season 5 is going to completely look like? I don't even know yet completely what season 5 is going to look like, but I know season 5 is going to be worth your while and worth you watching and you tuning in. I think it's going to be impactful for you and I to engage in conversations here on Leading with Lee. And so with that being said, I just want to say thank you. You know, for the last 4 years, whether you came in season 1 and you've been rocking with me for 4 years, or you just came this season, I want to say thank you for watching, for listening, for engaging in the content. And those of you who will come back to this content, I am excited for you to be impacted by what I've had to say over the last few years. Because I think that it's never too late to start your leadership journey. It's never too late to start the journey of self-discovery and transformation in your own life, because it matters for you. It matters that you become the person that you were designed and born to be. It really does matter. It really does. Because there's impact to be made by you. Whether you believe it or not, you can make an impact in your own life. You can make an impact in your own world. You can make an impact in your own family. You just have to believe that you can. If you don't believe it, I believe it. Much love. Happy holidays. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your time. And I will see you in 2024 for season 5 of Leading with Lee. Talk to you soon. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So thank you for watching. Much love, and let's get started.